Welcome to B-Rate Politics, the YouTube version. Of course, there's a lot of reason as to why I say that, especially given my absence. Sorry about that. If anyone was wondering where the hell I had gone, nice little Arctic blast I got to enjoy in February. So, there's all of that. But generally, with B-Rate Politics, I would, as a radio guy, I wanted to take opportunities to, kind of go over things that I may not get to on my podcast. You can always catch Monday, Wednesday, Friday again on Patreon. Monday podcasts are always free. They're about an hour long, cover about 3 different topics, and I really try and break things down. Again, not really like some kind of alt-right channel or some big progressive channel. Just kind of give it to you as I see it. That being said, I got a couple of videos I'm going to work on this week. One that you've right now wondering, probably given by the title, you have somewhat of an idea what I'm going to talk about. And I've definitely noticed that this was kind of a trend. And maybe the last couple of weeks, a lot of articles started reporting it. There was signs and protesting like, be nice with China. And I'm sitting there going, well, we really are actually. Regardless of what Trump and Biden are going to tell you, we're actually a lot closer with China and Russia than most people realize. But as far as covering the topic of the rise in Asian hate, and I actually had covered this on my Monday podcast, so if you're interested in breaking down more of the data, you're welcome to go check it out. But I was using the example out of New York City. This lady had, started a GoFundMe for her mother to raise money because, essentially some wacko that killed his own mother beat the hell out of this Asian because apparently he was going to catch COVID. And that's right there is the whole key point of why I bring this up. And this fear in general that we're going to kind of break down for a few minutes here. Got to make sure I hit that 10-minute mark. Not that that's for pointing out anything. But anyways, so that being said, there's this, in the last year, we've had a rise in Asian hate. Okay, I'm going to use New York City as an example. This comes from the New York Police Department. Again, you can actually have a link of the article over on my Patreon. Check out the Monday podcast. It'd be number 69. So yeah, I've done quite a few of these. So anyways, within it, I think in 2019 they had reported about 3 or so cases. In 2020, they reported about 25 cases in relation to Asian hate crime. Again, this is only Asian hate crimes. We went in 2019 in New York City alone, we went from 3. In 2020, we went up to like it was a couple of dozen. And then right now, at the start of 2021, there's already been about a dozen cases. So the question comes, where are all these racists coming out of the woodworks? Especially in the last year, because I can't really think of anything that the media and politicians have been going on and on about. I can't really think, mainly I don't want to mention too much because, YouTube and stuff. But the reason is over on the podcast, so if you really want to know. But I guess I'll just call it the disease. We'll leave it at that. But in general, that is what the New York Police Department also cites with a lot of these Asian hate crimes, is that they're disease related. That being said, Americans are acting on fear. That's what it is. They're acting on fear. And yeah, when you've basically told them to be in fear of COVID, yeah, they're going to go do that. I think it's really retarded. I think it's really stupid that for some odd reason you go and eat a fortune cookie, which, by the way, is not a Asian thing. It's actually an American thing. And we'll talk about what it means to be American. But, you have Americans somehow convinced that going and eating a fortune cookie or going to China buffet and they're going to catch COVID. Now, if you already haven't found that sounds really stupid, I'm going to further make my point. Like, you know what? Let's just entertain that idea that you go and eat your fortune cookie, and instead of reading something nice, you're hacking up a lung. Let's go with that, okay? Because there's something more that people fear, particularly Americans, that we fear most. Because we always need something to fear. Been going on for 20 years now, not really an end in sight, even though politicians act like we're going to end it anytime soon, which is the war on terror. Now, if I took this concept that people are having in terms of, fighting COVID and essentially staying away from Asians or something, if I took that concept and applied it to the war on terror, well, hell, that means I could never associate with anyone in society. Sorry. I couldn't associate with anyone in society. I couldn't even associate with myself. And why do I say that? Well, because under the Patriot Act, the idea of a U.S. citizen, a citizen of anyone, doesn't exist. That doesn't exist. You are a terrorist. Unless you get your weapons from Saudi Arabia or Egypt, then you're what I call a freedom fighter. But that's a whole nother story on U.S. foreign policy that we're not going to get into. But my point is, and when I try and point this out on my podcast, when I'm pointing out inconsistencies, and the fact that, okay, people are hating Asians. Why is that? Because they're scared of COVID. You've given them something to fear, and they're convinced, the American people, they're convinced that by eating a fortune cookie, by going and eating at China buffet, they're going to catch COVID. It's really stupid. It's really dumb, but I'm not that surprised, really. I'm really not. Like I said, there was one other thing that had kind of come in my mind of thinking, which was, well, if you took a poll, if you asked general Americans like the idea of, the possibility of a terrorist blowing up their house, I think you'd find, in all honesty, I think you'd find a high level of Americans that actually believe that. It's really stupid. In all honesty, it's really retarded. But in all honesty, that's the whole point of this video is there a rise in Asian hate? Yeah, there is. Why? There's just more racists out of the woodworks? Or is it the fact that people are fearing, again, not saying Americans aren't racist or that society isn't racist. That's not the point of my video. The point of this video is to point out that people are acting in fear. I've complained on my podcast, one of the things about, when we talk about vaccine distribution, one of the greater ills of the West is the fact that they're going to end up hoarding all of these vaccines. There was never going to be a vaccine shortage. It is if you're outside of the West. When people want to talk to me about vaccine distribution in terms of COVID, I'm like, yeah, probably the biggest ill that the West has committed is that they're going to, because they've acted in on fear, because they're so scared of COVID. Again, I'm not saying you can't have your concerns with terrorists. I'm not saying you can't have your concerns with COVID. I do too. Very much so. But when you act in fear on it, your rationality then is no longer there. And it's the same thing in terms of, Asian hate. What's driving it? Like, are there just a bunch of, did the Klan just suddenly just really skyrocket, spike in numbers or something? Or is there really something more to it? That's the whole point of my video. I'm not saying that there aren't people who aren't racist to some group in the United States. I'm not saying the United States is complete error of races, my point being is that in the end, if you were to ask me, like, well, what do you define, radio guy, what do you define as American? I would say, well, start with a hamburger, be in fear of that hamburger, and then nuke that said hamburger. That is, in my mind, what it would mean to be American. And I don't mean nuke in terms of put it in a microwave. I'm talking more in terms of there's a nice $400 or $500 million drone we're going to fly over it, and we'll see what they think about Americans after that. So that's the whole point, But yes, there is a rise in Asian hate. I've definitely seen a lot of articles talking about it, but they're not really getting to the root, like real root bottom, which is to say that people are acting on fear. Americans love to fear shit. What can I say? They love to fear stuff. It's almost like if there's anything they love the federal government to help them with anything more than else in life is to find them something to fear. But remember, eye on the ball, my fellow Americans and anyone else who's watching this. Remember, the one thing to fear the most, climate change? No. Terrorists. Remember, terrorists. Keep your eye on the ball. That was kind of my big spiel on that. I don't want to take up any more anyone's time, but I just wanted to point out the fact that it's all fear. That's all it is. Everyone's just acting in fear. Like I said, people are convinced that they're going to walk outside their home and they're going to get mauled by a bear. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a chance that could happen. Like I said, there's a chance a terrorist could blow up your home. That exists, very much so. There's a chance you could catch COVID. Very much so. There is that chance. I never said there wasn't. I never said you can't have your concerns with it. I have my concerns with terrorists, with COVID, with bears mauling me, but I don't live in fear of it. And like I said, and when you're talking about COVID and you're talking about the greatest ill the West committed, which is in the end hoarding the vaccine. I even went over it. I mean, just to give one stat, I think I'll pick on Canada. I've kind of dogged enough on Americans, but like Canada, for instance, they have enough vaccine purchased to vaccinate their population like easily 5 or 6 times over. It's freaking retarded. It's dumb. It just doesn't even make any sense. It's completely stupid. That's the insanity that has gone on. And don't get me wrong, we have over 500,000 dead Americans. It's sad in relation at all. And again, it's sad that Americans are, taking out this concept of like, if I eat a fortune cookie, if I go to China buffet, I'm going to catch COVID. No, you aren't. Well, I mean, I shouldn't say you aren't. I mean, you still technically probably could. There's always that chance. But, I mean, use a little bit of rationality. It's really not that hard. But like I said, this video's gone on long enough. Thanks again for anyone watching. Like I said, you can always check out more podcasts. Do about an hour over on Patreon. Mondays are always free. I'm always going to hold to that. If you want to listen to me on Wednesdays and Fridays, it's only $3 a month, so it's not that bad at all. I try to do a reasonable price. Not that, because I feel like some of the things I say might be a bit out there when I'm like, no. The idea of a U.S. citizen, no, that's not really a thing. Or what me over here defining what it means to be American. There would be a lot of Americans that would take offense. So like, what do you mean nuke the hamburger? But I'll leave everybody with that. Expect one more video this week. It'll be on essentially what's really annoyed me lately, which is everybody is somehow claiming the authority of travel destination is somehow all you need to talk about some of these topics that we go on about in politics. But that's more to be seen. Hopefully everybody has a great day, and thanks again for watching and listening to B-Rate Politics with Radio Guy.